Kamigawa Neon Dynasty has just experienced another leak, so we're getting an early look at some more Kamigawa cards, and this time we are getting crazy powerful mechs and crazy busted enchantment cards.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to talk about another Kamigawa Neon Dynasty leak. And the cards we're going to be looking at today are absolutely insane. Like I said, we've got an insane mech, we've got crazy enchantment based cards, so with no further ado, I'm going to put up on the screen for you a green Kami. And looking at this card, it is very evident to me how far Magic has come in terms of making very potent cards to fit into particular strategies. I've always been a huge fan of green enchantment decks and green-white enchantment decks. Since pretty much almost the earliest days of Magic, I remember messing about with that kind of concept with Verdurn enchantresses and Ephemerif enchantresses, all kinds of silliness, right? So, the Kami of Transience fits perfectly into this style of deck. 1 green and 1 gets you a 2/2 spirit. So right off the board, you know it's a grizzly bear, right? And this is the kind of metric that I used to use to gauge Magic cards when I started. It was like 2 mana gets you a 2/2, that's a good baseline. And if you can go beyond that, then you're getting ahead in Magic. Now, obviously, by today's standards, things have become far more rapid. So Kami of Transience is a powerful card, but it's not like insane to the level where it's going to overwhelm games on its own. But once you combine it with other cards, the card advantage you get from it can be significant. Now, I know I've gone on a lot about this without actually talking about the cards, so let me tell you the abilities, because this one's really got me fired up here. So, it's a 2/2 with trample. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kami of Transience. And at the beginning of each end step, it's each end step. It's not even like your own end step. At the beginning of each end step, if an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return Kami of Transience from your graveyard to your hand. So there's multiple ways to take advantage of this. The clearest path to use is just straight up, boom, put it out, start casting a bunch of enchantments. Every time you cast an enchantment, you're putting a +1/+1 counter on this. Even if you're not putting the enchantments on the Kami itself, it is a continually growing threat, which I like. It fits into an enchantment deck well, where if you've already sometimes with enchantment decks, you're playing let's build the biggest, craziest, most ridiculous creature. Now, I know you're setting yourself up for a sad time if somebody goes ahead and destroys that creature, but who cares? We're having fun, right? So you go ahead and you start to slap all these enchantments onto one of your creatures, and then the Kami of Transience shows up, and your brain goes, oh, this guy gets bigger and whatever when I cast my enchantment, so I don't have to focus on enchanting him. I can allow him to grow alongside this crazy beast that I'm building, and then I have an additional thing to swing on my opponents that they need to worry about. But the Kami of Transience returns whenever an enchantment hits the graveyard. And if you haven't played enchantment decks, it is so easy to have enchantments hit the graveyard. And also, you can literally just play the Kami where you put the enchantments on him, right? And then you know, as soon as the Kami goes to the graveyard, you're guaranteed to get him back. Because if you put an enchantment on him, well, guess what? If he went to the graveyard, that enchantment did too. So you've met the conditions to put him back in your hand. And he even gets around last second targeting with that ability. And by that I mean, let's say you have the Kami of Transience out. I go to cast an enchantment. I have the Kami out. I go to cast an enchantment on the Kami. In response, you play a spell destroying my Kami. Kami goes to the graveyard. And then my enchantment ends up going to the graveyard as well. Well, it's like, there you go. There you go. It's like you're just feeding the stuff into the graveyard. The Kami can keep coming back in an infinite cycle of nonsense. It just feels so solid to me. I feel like a 2/2 for 2 with trample that grew just from having enchantments cast is already really strong, but that might have just been the uncommon level, right? At the rare level, this thing is super strong. And I love the artwork too. It makes me think of like a big autumnal moose, right? Or he's just kind of like plodding down the road with this sort of big autumnal head and his little kami spirits floating around it. But the idea of transience is like he's here and gone and here and gone and here and gone. Like he embodies the concept of like an eternal sort of like autumnal vision, right? Where I'll be back next autumn. I'll be back next autumn. But he can actually show up more frequently. So does the concept of transience actually also transmit to this creature in terms of like the leaves will be bright and bushy in spring and summer, and if you meet the winter version, he has no leaves on him whatsoever? Like, does this kami move through all of the natural cycles? Because we have kamis of like different trees and different concepts, but this is literally the kami of the concept of transience, which is a very, very neat idea. Now, when I was looking at the cards we're talking about today, I called this episode in my head Triple Double Trouble, because that's genuinely what it feels like to me. And every card we're going to talk about is a rare that has a casting cost of 2. So let us move on to the next card we're going to talk about. Now, because these are leaks, this image is awful. So sorry about that, my friends. Nothing I can do about it. I figure you're as eager as me to see the new cards. So let us muddle through Light Paw's Emperor's Voice. That is a very odd name to begin with, right? Like, obviously, in the previous Kamigawa, we had people like 8.5 Tails. So being named after your paws, I just feel like Light Paws could mean 2 things. You could be like, oh, he's Light Paws. He's like a holy cleric or something like that. Or it could be Light Paws. That dude steals a lot. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what you call somebody light-fingered if they'll wander off with your stuff. So, Light Paw's Emperor's Voice, it seems like, this is a servant of the Emperor. I guess whoever the Emperor is, this is the person who speaks for them. Maybe they have a setup in the current Kamigawa. Sometimes you have these situations where royalty are like too up on high to talk to the regular common folk, so they have somebody else who speaks for them. So that might be the role here. We don't really know the full fleshed out story of Kamigawa because we're not going to be getting the lore until I think actually we start getting the lore starting tomorrow, right? So Light Paws is 1 white and 1 for a 2/2 legendary fox advisor with an incredible ability. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura and with a different name than each aura you control, And then you get to cast that aura, you get to put that card onto the battlefield, attach the Light Paws, and then you shuffle your deck. So this is a pretty crazy card. Obviously, I got a little like clunky with the wording there because I'm new to it too. But what it's going to do is whenever you cast an aura, it's basically going to check 2 things. First of all, did you actually cast the aura? If you did cast the aura, then the game's going to go, okay, what's the casting cost of that aura? Now you can go through your deck, pick any aura you want that costs the same or less, but it can't be an aura that's already on the battlefield. So, on one hand, this can make your deck clearly much stronger in terms of, boom, you can get a bunch of bonus aura action going on. But on the other hand, it can somewhat weaken your deck if you wish to try and maximize this effect, because you need to have more of a singleton focus on it, right? If you're playing 4 copies of each particular aura in your deck, then once you get one of those out, those other 3 auras are essentially blank cards as far as Light Paws is concerned, because you're not able to go through and grab those. However, if you're playing a whole range of different enchantments, now you've got a bigger toolbox to pull from, but the key enchantments, the ones that are most important for your deck, if you're not playing 4 copies of those anymore, now you have a much lower chance of getting them unless you can access them through Light Paws. So you have to kind of look at the trade-off and go, if I have more different auras, I can utilize Light Paw more effectively. However, if I go that route, I have to protect and keep Light Paws out, because if I don't, I am in a world of trouble. The stuff I need is really not going to be there. So it's a really interesting card. Like I said, I liked playing white-green enchantment decks, and this, like Light Paws and the Kami of Transience, feel like really obvious things to combine together. Just start casting. Every time you cast an enchantment, oh, this guy gets bigger. Oh, I'll go grab another enchantment. I'll slap it on this guy. So this is really potent just out the gates, but it also feels like this is going to make an amazing commander, right? Like, that just dawned on me. I will admit, I'm not as into Commander as other people are, so I haven't played as much Commander. I currently only have one Commander deck, and I don't always evaluate things from a Commander perspective. But as I was talking about having Singleton, I went, oh man, you know what? In Commander, this is going to be amazing. Because you have only one of each given card. So you're never really going to have that duplicate name scenario unless somebody's playing some kind of crazy copy cards. But regardless, you're going to have a big old toolbox of enchantments. Plus, you can make Light Paws your actual commander in that situation. Obviously, you have to stick to a pure white build for that. But that seems really, really potent to me. Now, let us move on to the absolutely insane mech that they are introducing into Magic. And this is the Mukotai Soul Ripper. And I have to admit, I'm actually kind of impressed that they made a mech that didn't set me off the way I thought it was going to. Like, if you've been following this channel for a long time, you know I am way more into the swords and sorcery style of Magic the Gathering than I am into science fiction and other variations like that when it specifically comes to MTG. So in the past, I'm going to put it up on the screen for you. They did a Battletech mech for Urza and whatever, and I hated these things. It was called Power Armor. It literally just looked like the old Battletech mech game, and it was really jarring. It did not feel like it fit in the world of Magic the Gathering. I mean, you're looking at it on the screen right now. You're probably feeling the same way I do. When you look at this Soul Ripper here, yeah, it's definitely like a mech, because if you look at the bottom, the card has crew. But when you look at the artwork, it doesn't really have, like, yeah, it is this big towering kind of mech thing, but it doesn't have the same kind of jarring feel that the Power Armor and stuff did. It kind of just feels like a big crazy golem that has to be manned by, like, for me, at least right now, what I'm seeing actually kind of feels like it fits more into the realm of Magic. It is somewhat outside of it, but it's not as jarring as I thought it would be. Now that I've got that out of the way, let's actually talk about the card's power level. And if anybody's wondering why I didn't talk about Light Paws artwork, it was so dark and small, I can't even make out what's going on. There's just somebody standing there, right? So, the Soul Ripper is 1 black and 1 for a 4/3 artifact vehicle. And this card is strong, man. So, whenever the Soul Ripper attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact or creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Mukotai Soul Ripper, and it gains menace until end of turn. And its crew cost is only 2. This feels incredibly strong to me. It's only 2 mana to put out, and every creature that you get afterwards, it's almost like it takes away those creatures' summoning sickness. You slap out a creature the next turn, and then you just tap it to activate the Soul Ripper. The Soul Ripper gets up and running, and then boom, you can decide, do I want to sack a creature or artifact to it? Now it's bigger, and you have to block it with 2 creatures. So this thing can come out on the second turn, be swinging by the third turn, be a 5/4 menace on the third turn of the game, and be feeding into benefits for you. Like, if you played a first turn, what is the name of that ghoul? Shambling Ghoul or something like that. It's that 1 black 1/1. When it dies, you get a treasure token or give one of your opponent's creatures -1/-1. You put that out first turn, you've got the Soul Ripper out, and then on your third turn, you drop whatever other creature you're going to do. Boom. You activate the Soul Ripper, you swing in with the Soul Ripper, you sack that little dude over there, the 1/1. Now you either get to accelerate yourself via treasure, or you get to give one of your opponent's creatures -1/-1, and if they have one creature and only have 1 toughness, and they had 2 creatures to begin with, boom, now they can't even block the menace. And next turn you can feed more creatures into it. You can even feed the creature that's crewing it to it. You can have it activated by somebody and then feed them to it, which is, it just feels like this is a insanely hasty, like, it doesn't have the haste ability, but an insanely speedy way to ramp up giant creatures that ultimately avoid board wipes as well. If you don't have, like, instant speed creature removal, you can't wrath this off the board. It's only a creature on my turn when I choose to activate it, right? Which is nutty. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the crew ability, the ability to sack your crew is insane. It's like a mech where it can feed on the life energy of someone who's inside of it, man. Like, it can literally, it's like ripping the souls out of other people. It can also pull the soul out of your own body and add it into the machinery. Oh, that's dark and intense and horrifying. I love it. The flavor on that level is nuts. Look at the artwork, right? It's got this face where it's like inspecting somebody and, what am I going to do with you? Crunch! It's got like multiple, it's just this big hulking beast, man. I gotta say, this is the level that I can get on board with when it comes to like the crazy sci-fi stuff. So, my friends, this has been an episode of Triple Double Trouble. Let me know what you think of these spoilers. A big thank you to all of my patrons for supporting me in these difficult times. And I will see all of you, my friends, in the next video.